We're going to talk to Carole Ann Ford in a moment. But, Philip, before we do you know what?
What, Dwayne?
I'll go on. Say it. It's
Yeah,
episode 201. You say it.
it's time to go down the rabbit hole.
Thank you, Philip. And since you were so good at announcing where we were actually going, I thought I'd make this one of those occasions where you hit me with the rabbit hole topic because I
Oh,
haven't thought of one.
you ratbag. Well, anyhow, I'll do that because I have been thinking about it.
Oh,
Um,
good.
in the interview, we're gonna in with Carole Ann Ford, we're gonna talk a bit about her Big Finish work, and we're gonna talk about the fact that actually Susan is in three different parts. So in part when she first appears, she started off in the Unbound series with Jeffrey Bolden, and those two stories she did with Jeffrey are fantastic. Two or three? I think it's
It
two,
was two with Jeffrey
two,
Balden, yeah.
two with Jeffrey Bolden, which are amazing stories. So there's that Susan. Then she goes to Companion Chronicles and and some lost stories, and we get young Susan. But then she returns later on to get to work with Paul McGann as the Susan who's been left behind. And in fact, we actually have a whole story of her after the Daleks. Um, what are the stories of Big Finish with Susan that you like the best and why?
Well, I really love Old Mortality because I remember the excitement at the time of Carole Ann Ford coming to Big Finish for the first time. I love Jeffrey Balden. I've always loved him as Cat Weasel. I love him in Creature from the Pit. He, to me, that I know Big Finish at the time always said that that particular Unbound Doctor was not the actual first Doctor, whereas in my mind it always was the first Doctor who never left Gallifrey.
Mm.
But Big Finish have always said that no, it is a different first Doctor. I don't know how that works, but anyway. So I enjoyed that story very much. I really like the interaction she has with the Eighth Doctor. There's that real sense of grandfather granddaughter that they managed to capture between those
Mm.
two, and I love that whenever they get together. So it's been on a few different occasions now. I think the most recent one was for Once and Future, wasn't it? Where she was there with the Eighth Doctor in the last one, which was called, I can't remember what it was called. I should know.
Is that the Union one? One,
The Union.
yeah, the
The Union,
Union.
that's right. Yeah. So that was really nice. Um, yeah, and the ones, where the Lucy in the midst of the Lucy Miller series were good too. But I always have a really soft spot for the early adventures. And it was Lisa Bauman that directed many of those, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
And particularly the early adventures with Carol Ann and William Russell got one or two in there.
Yep.
Maybe a couple more than that. I have a real soft spot for those. Always loved the early adventures. I was sad when they finished that range up. I don't know whether it was because they felt the range was tired or it wasn't selling. I don't know. They were always top-notch quality, those stories. So,
I think sometimes just
uh,
they just haven't got time to do everything. I think when they were recasting the First Doctor, that was the choice was to go for recast the First Doctor.
yeah. So I think I love them all, but my sentimental favorite would have to be the early adventures. I love those.
There
Mm.
you go.
What about you? You got a
Um,
favorite era?
well, I mean, I love the Companion Chronicles, you know that, but um, to me, yeah, the Paul McGann stories are just so emotionally powerful, and her with a son and her grandfather, and well, sort of, I mean, they've got a lovely Christmas show together, which is just beautiful, but it just gets very dark, and it Susan gets to go to some very dark places because of what happens because of the Daleks and Lucy and her son, and it's very powerful performances. I'm going to call out a short trips though, because I don't usually call out short trips. Um,
I was going to say that's usually my jam.
that's usually your area, but there's a short trip called All Hands on Deck,
Yep.
which is a really bleak story where it's basically the Time War's coming, and the Time Lords are going around collecting all Time Lords. And so Susan's there, and they go to Susan, and they recall Susan back to Gallifrey, and the Eighth Doctor's there trying to stop her and saying, "No, don't go. Don't get involved with the war." But she feels duty bound to go back to her planet, and it's a really amazing short trip.
And of course, it was the
Yeah,
prologue to Susan's War, wasn't it?
and then it's kind of the prologue into the box set of Susan's War, and Susan's War is the Time Lord sending her on missions, and all of them have a connection to her first season, with the first season.
Yes.
So it's a beautiful show with sense with William Russell, and a lovely scene with William Russell in the house, and the front door, the key goes in the lock of the front door, and it opens, and it's Barbara. The show ends before she speaks, but it's Barbara coming home, and it's just Ian and Barbara living together. It's just such a
Oh, I'd
beautiful little
forgotten
moment.
about that. I remember it now. It was
Oh,
fantastic.
that moment just
Yep.
warms me heart. And those stories in that Susan box set are really lovely stories. I keep hoping they'll do another one. But it's Susan during the Time War, and she's still a bit naive because I don't think she understands. Well, actually, she does know there's manipulation happening there, but she's still seeking to do good. And so it's her trying to do good, and she's doing what the Eighth Doctor's trying to do in the Time War as well, which is
Mm.
maintain integrity as everything collapses around you. It's a really great box set. Yeah, I love what they've done with her character, and yeah, I don't think you can complain about how they brought Susan back and what they do with her.
Mm. Here's a question for you. Do you think, with all the Susan twists in the later series, do you think she's coming back in any shape or form?
I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. In fact, by the time this comes out, we might know definitely one way or the other. See, there's
Could
any
do.
clue. See, there's any clues in the interview that we're about to give, whether you think she's coming back or not.
There could be. You never know.
If you enjoyed what you heard in this clip from the Sirens of Audio podcast, be sure to subscribe and click that notification bell so you never miss out on another episode from us. And if you want to find out more about us, including our back catalogue of episodes, you can head over to sirensofaudio.com.